I'd say that they're thinking of that now. They're off now.
And we're off. So it'll be about 2 hours and 10 minutes later that the first of the runners will reach Melbourne. And already we can see Umarakanga in the green shirt just behind the car, which is going to pull out of our view now. And the Kanga.
Here we are, the leading bunch, with our two. We're dead heat there. Austin and Kanga, dead heat in front.
Right.
And I think that would be the pole behind, by the look of him.
By the look of the singlet.
Yes, I've never seen the pole run, but I would say that would be him behind him. We can't see his number. Yes, Szynski, Jersey Szynski.
We've got to look at him perhaps there in a moment.
The main problem,
5, yes, it's Szynski.
The main problem with Steve will be whether he can mentally last out the 42 kilometres. It's a long run, long way if you're not used to it. Depends how much acceleration, how many bad patches you go through, and what you're feeling like when you go through the bad patch, and how the others treat you when you go through a bad patch. Pity. Here we are back in the general field, but I would like to make a comment later, if I can, just as we get closer to the finish, about the sprint finish. I disagree a bit with Gary Cousins about what natural speed you have to finish. I think it really depends very much on how fresh you are at the end, how fast you are, because your Kangaroo, in fact, is a very fast 400 metre runner, much faster than De Castella, yet De Castella has beaten him over the last bit in both the marathons that he's raced against him because he was fresher than him.
Well, this is the scene back at Black Rock again as the main body of the field is going through, and we haven't seen any of the lady runners yet. Graham, have any passed you?
Yes, Bill, we've had, I think, 4 or 5 go past us, and only within the last 2 or 3 minutes. So, Trevor, how would you rate their times at this point of the event?
Well, it's a little bit hard to say what sort of time they're going to run, but I believe the leading lady was Margaret Redden from Queensland, who's run for around 2:47 previously. She wasn't too far in front of Barbara Burns, with Barbara McKerrow running third. They all look quite good. They're all athletes who have run under 250 for a marathon. It's very hard to say probably perhaps what they'll run today, but we've had those 3 go through looking okay, fairly close to each other, so it's a little bit hard to perhaps predict that the girl who's leading at present might be the first female to finish. After them, there's been a couple more girls go through, so and as well as that, now we're seeing a very, very large pack of runners continue to go through in large numbers of people, all shapes and sizes, all styles and actions and whatever else. So we're really seeing the middle of the field come through now, perhaps the sub-3 hour type athletes.
But it's getting along now to the very business end of the race. I believe that the race always is run this way, and that's where they are. Just turn into around the Alwood Beach, heading towards the St Kilda Marina. When they turn right there, it's all home turf to me. I used to run this every morning for something like 4 years, so I know it backwards now. It's a very nice, easy run into St Kilda Road, and I'd be liking Austin at this stage. I think that he's looking all right. It's just whether his legs can hold out the race, the part that you don't know. I mean, he's got the grimace on his face, but that's natural when you're running a marathon because it's physical more than anything else. I must admit that Szynski's looking very, very comfortable, and the Kanga doesn't look too bad either. So it's one of the most interesting marathons I've ever seen. The 3 of them, you could close your eyes, put happy in, and say each one of them you have a much chance of picking a winner as the best form judge.
Kanga's still in front. Austin and Szynski right on his hammer. And we've gone past the 35k mark, the distance of the marathon, 42.195 kilometres. And we look from the great to perhaps the stragglers, but they certainly are doing a marvellous job over this gruelling journey. The famous origins of the marathon going back many, many years, of course, and these men carrying on a great tradition. Umarakanga in the top left-hand corner of your screen in the green singlet, leading from Steve Austin in the white, Jersey Szynski in the red, and there you see the scenes at Black Rock as the runners filed past after starting this morning at 8 o'clock at Frankston, and we have really a perfect day, and everything looks set for one of the classic marathon finishes, certainly one of the best finishes we've ever seen in the Big M.
This is start easy. This is the relaxation. This is the break that you need, that Steve's legs will need, because as soon as you start to run downhill, I knew that a track was downhill or uphill, even though the engineers didn't, because your legs could feel it. Because again, we get tired in at 10,000 metres, and that break coming downhill could be enough. If Bryony remembers that Ikenga's a guy who also surges and comes back to
he goes
getting
again,
a break.
Ikenga.
Yeah, I don't like, as I said before, I don't like what Steve's doing. But Steve has to hang on to him now. This is precise. Ikenga also runs on confidence.
Well,
he has to hang on to him. Yep.
Years. He's coming into the last kilometre of the race now.
It's difficult for anyone to comprehend just how fast these guys run. Okay, 5-minute mile. Anyone says a 5-minute mile is not all that quick until they try and test it themselves. And they
run 26 of them in a row.
Yeah, that's right. But even if you break it down to a quarter-mile segments, it's about 75 seconds or so for a quarter-mile. And that's shifting. That's 37 seconds or so for a 220. And not many people can run that for a 220. And they have to run, 4 times 26. What's that? 104 consecutive quarter miles in 76 seconds or so. And that's as quick as most footballers can run a quarter mile. It's fairly quick. It's a great effort.
Here he is coming to the finish.
All the way from Tanzania. He's going to clock 2 hours, 15 minutes, 31 seconds.
3:15:31. That is the approximate time.
Yes, 2:15. I suppose one way disappointing, but we saw a great race. I would like to have seen a better time for it, as anyone would, and I think that Ikenga will be disappointed because that's his slowest ever marathon, beating us on last year. Here's Steve Austin. It's a good first up. I'd love to see him in London. We're going to see him, I think, next year, because he wins that for being the first Australian through. It's a good first up marathon, and let's hope he has a foundation in there now that he can build on.
Well, Australians certainly telling on a few of them there, Ron.
It's actually good to... I love to see these people going through. I mean, it's easier to be the winner, quite frankly, than to be these guys, because this is hurting. I ran a marathon when I first started as a bit of training, and I ran it in 2 hours 45. And at that stage, there was a chap called Alf O'Connor, who was a solicitor, and he was president of the Victorian Marathons Club, and he'd won South Australian Marathon in 2 hours 45, exactly that. And I thought, well, he's the guy to sit along with and go with. And when I trotted out, I felt so... Look at some of those. I felt this was the right pace, but he was too slow. But then, as I got tighter and towards the end of the race, I was doing what this guy was doing, walking along fairly slowly and trying to go lamppost by lamppost, walk the lamppost and jog a lamppost. Saw Alfo coming, tried to run with him, and he was going what seemed to be the same pace, but seemed to me that stage like a sprint, and I just couldn't stay with him. And these guys are feeling that much tougher, and it's that much harder for them than the people up in front, and I admire them, I think, if not more than the guys at front, because they're really putting their heart and soul into it to get to the finish line.
Number 625 is Les Crawford from Geelong.
Sometimes the ladies get pretty thin, and it's hard to tell the difference. We got an F on the number, so you should be looking for F on the number. The marathon runners of all sorts, the true marathon runners, are fairly thin people. And it's hard to pick. Is that a lady there? It looks like it is, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Number 4 and
Margaret Redden.
Margaret Redden from
Queensland. She come down. She's very good indeed. Yeah, she's a good runner. It's one of her first runs. She's winner of many Queensland fun runs. She's run 2:45. She ran across I saw her in England running in the English marathon, not this year, the year before, and she was one of a top echelon of Australian runners. But the fact that she's only run 2 hours 44 is probably indicative, again, as I said before, about the conditions. They must have been fairly hard out there, harder than what we thought sitting here in the cool of the studio.